Most agency owners will spend their entire lives building someone else's business. In this video, I want to show you how to start building your own business using equity. My first equity deal was with a guy named Bill DeWeese. He came to one of my events and he is a voiceover artist. We built the largest voiceover training business in the world as partners, and it ended up making us both a lot of money. It all started with a one-page agreement that I put together for the very first time, by the way, with Bill. We didn't need any lawyers. In fact, having lawyers or any kind of a complex agreement would have been detrimental to the process, because if I had had some long, lengthy agreement, he probably would have had to take that back to Chicago, where he was from, and get somebody to review it. And chances are that deal would never have gone through. My name is Fred Gleek, and I've been doing equity deals for the past 16 years. And by the way, it started with Bill. He was the first person where he came to one of my events, and I said, you know what, as he was leaving, I said, why not, instead of going out and doing this on your own, why don't we do it together? And that's where the first equity deal was born. And that's where I put together the one-page agreement, and the rest is history. Today, I'm going to give you the exact steps you need to take to land your first equity deal in the next 90 days. So again, let me go over my first equity deal success story. I met Bill when he came to one of my events in Las Vegas. He showed up and he's in the voiceover business. And this event was all about showing people how to create and launch their own information products business and an information marketing business. So at the end of that event, I decided, or I shared with him the idea that rather than sending him out on his own to do this all by himself, I thought, why don't we do this together? He agreed. And what we did is we put together the one-page agreement, we executed it, and we had some pretty darn good long-term results. Over the course of that deal with him, we did over $3 million in total revenue, completely transforming my business model and then making it so that all I wanted to do from that point on is do equity deals. And since then, I've done a dozen or so equity deals that have helped agency owners do exactly the same thing. Your first equity deal is critical. It's critical for a number of reasons. At the top, you can see there, it's critical to building real wealth. But more importantly, let's start at the bottom. It creates your template. Your first deal establishes a framework for all of your future deals. And it builds, as the second step shows you, a lot of confidence, because once you've done one, you know it's possible. And as you get to the apex there, you get to build real wealth by compounding one deal on top of another, which geometrically increases the amount of money you can be making. Okay, so let's talk about identifying the right or the correct partner. The first thing you need to do is find and create trust with your existing relationship and identify them. So you probably have a client that you're already working with. Have you worked with them before? Do you like them? Do you respect them? Do they have great expertise? And is there mutual trust? That's step number one. Number two, you have to ask yourself, is this a business with clear growth potential? Look for businesses with good fundamentals, but room for improvement in areas where you excel, so that you can share your expertise and add value to this equation. Then you also want to make sure you're dealing with an ethical business person, because this is non-negotiable. If you're dealing with someone that you're even a little bit worried about how they are and what they might do, you need partners who are honest about their numbers and operate with integrity. You also need to find a way that your skills complement each other. If you're type A and they're type A, or you have the same skill sets they do, this is not a formula for a good long-term equity relationship, because you need people who bring different skills to the table, and therefore you don't compound each other's mistakes if you have the same ones, but you complement each other by having skills that work together. The first step in identifying the right partner for your first equity deal, and contrary to what you might think, you should start with existing clients or contacts you already have, rather than running around trying to find new people to approach with this new concept that you now have on doing equity deals. Somebody you already have rapport with. Why? Because this is the foundation of any equity partnership. With anyone you've already worked with, this is a really important element, and they're much more likely to agree to an equity deal. So start with them first. Okay, so the question is, how do you figure out whether or not somebody you're thinking of working with is someone that you really have the opportunity to build something with, if there's a growth opportunity there? And so I say here, growth opportunity identification. You've identified three specific areas where we or you and them can create significant growth. Another one is to analyze their current situation. Right now, you can say to them, your business is generating X amount of dollars with Y amount of profit. And here's where we can take it from here. And here's where my value can add value to the total equation. You want to look also for your specific contribution. Here's exactly what I bring to the table that will make this growth possible and result in better outcomes for everyone. You also want to have projected outcomes with numbers. You can say, based on my experience, we can realistically achieve X amount of dollars within X amount of time. Once you've identified potential partners, you need to craft a compelling value proposition. And these are all the components that go into this. It isn't about selling your services, it's about demonstrating how you can significantly grow their business and why you're the right person to do that. Start by identifying those growth opportunities and exactly where you can help them and how your skill set will help the business grow. Okay, so the equity conversation has a set of specific steps that you kind of have to go through. So, first off, you have to set the context. I've been thinking about our work together, you might say, and I see an opportunity for us to create something much more valuable through a different kind of partnership. Then you want to introduce the equity concept. You can say, rather than continuing with our current fee arrangement, I'd like to propose an equity partnership where I own a percentage of the growth we create together. Then you want to explain the benefits. The biggest advantage for you, instead of being a fixed cost, I become a variable cost, and my results are tied directly to the results that we achieve. You only pay me when things go right and we win together. You also want to make sure and address any of the questions. You can say to them, I know you might have questions about how this would work, so let me walk you through what I'm exactly proposing to do. Now comes the moment of truth, the equity conversation. And here it is, we just discussed it. Many agency owners get nervous about this part, but I'm going to give you the exact script to use. When transitioning from service provider to partner, use language like, instead of working for you, I want to work with you. My success should be directly tied to your success and, frankly, to our success. Here's an example of one of my successful equity conversations that you can feel free to kind of use and customize for yourself. John, you're currently paying me $3,000 a month for marketing services. That's $36,000 a year, whether your business grows or not. What if instead I took a 20% equity position in the business? You'd pay me nothing up front, but I'd get 20% of the profits. If I help you grow from 200,000 to 500,000 a year, my 20% would be worth 100,000, much more than my fees. But here's the key. You'd be making 400,000 instead of 200,000. We both win and make significantly more. Okay, so let's talk about how we structure the actual deal that you put together in that one-page agreement. Number one, you really want to think about what is the correct percentage. And that usually varies anywhere from 10 to 50%, depending on the maturity of the business and the value that you're contributing. Also, in that same agreement, you want to clearly lay out the roles and responsibilities each party will contribute to this partnership. You also want to have the exit provisions. It's kind of like the divorce, the prenuptial or the divorce elements. What will happen if one party wants to leave or the business is sold? You want to make sure and prepare for all the eventualities. And you also want to have performance metrics, how success will be measured and tracked over time. Once you have interest from someone, it's time to structure the deal. This is where my one-page agreement comes in. For your first deal, consider some kind of a hybrid model, perhaps to reduce fee plus equity. This can make the transition easier for both parties. For example, you might reduce your monthly fee by 50% in exchange for 15% equity position. The key is simplicity and clarity. Your agreement should be easy to understand and focused on the partnership success, not bogged down in the legal mumbo jumbo. For established businesses, 10 to 20% equity is common. Again, depending on the size and the amount of revenue they're generating. For new ventures, where you're starting from scratch, 50% can be appropriate. The key factors are how long they've been in business, how long they've been established for, and how much value you're adding to this equation. You also want to make sure that in your agreement, you provide for something if it happens to either party, like in the event that you get hit by a bus or your partner does. Where does, say, 10% of the total revenue ongoing go? Does it go to their wife, their kids? Who does that go to? So in other words, this is where the legacy element comes in. And by creating an equity deal, you're creating legacy. And basically, for many people, this doesn't quite take the place of, but it certainly augments and increases the life insurance guarantee you might have in place for any of your heirs. Let's say that you're talking to someone and they're like really confused about what equity is. You can provide simple explanations, show them perhaps a copy of your standard one-page agreement to basically help them understand how this deal works, because it might be something completely new to them. Another thing that you might find is a client is hesitant about giving up ownership. And this is, easily understood. Somebody feels like they've got their baby and you're wanting a piece of it, and you can understand that. So you have to make it clear that by giving up something, they're gaining a lot more. And that's where you really have to show that by becoming a partner, you're going to be generating for them a lot more than had you just been a hired hand. You can also use the choice to go with a hybrid model, which is a combination of maybe a certain amount of, like, say, a reduced monthly fee and a smaller piece of the revenue sharing initially until you get to the equity deal, so that you can use this kind of a hybrid model to make things easier for the client to adapt and come to grips with and agree to. One of the things that people are always concerned about is, how do they present deals like this, or how should you present a deal like this? And it's a good idea to kind of rehearse these before you get in front of a real client for the first time, so that you know exactly what to say and how to say it. And it's important that you really understand what are your key selling points, both in terms of your traits, skills, and abilities, and also what is the value of an equity deal and why it's of benefit to them. And you should have those down before you even start. Okay, so now let's look at your 90-day plan to land your first equity deal. Days 1 through 30, the first month. Yeah, that's your partner identification. You want to review your current client list and identify 5 to 7 potential equity partners. You want to research the business in depth and identify specific growth opportunities that you can improve upon. You want to develop a detailed value proposition for your top 3 candidates. And you want to prepare your equity conversation script and practice it thoroughly. Now, in days 31 through 60, or in your second month, you want to initiate the equity conversation with your top candidate, the person you feel most likely to accept this deal. Then you want to address their questions and concerns and refine your proposal, presenting at the same time your one-page agreement and negotiating the terms. And lastly, you want to finalize the agreement and establish tracking systems on the numbers that you're going to be looking at, your KPIs. In days 61 through 90, or month 3, we're going to talk about implementation. You want to begin implementing your growth strategies that both of you agreed to. You want to identify and achieve your first measurable win and view progress and adjust strategies as needed. And then lastly, you want to evaluate the partnership and plan for long-term growth. If you follow this plan exactly, you will have your first equity deal in 90 days. Okay, so let's recap the key steps to landing your first equity deal. Number 1, identify your ideal partner from existing relationships that you already have. Number 2, craft a specific, measurable value proposition. 3, have the equity conversation using the script I provided you earlier. Then you want to structure a simple, clear agreement, 1 page. 5, you want to focus on implementation and early wins. Your first equity deal will change everything about how you view your agency. Instead of trading hours for dollars, you'll be building real wealth through ownership. If you want my 1-page equity agreement template, just comment the word equity below this video and I'll send it to you. And if you want to contact me directly, just call the number on the screen. That's my real number. Feel free to leave me a message. I'll get right back to you. If you want my help, I do have something that's been tried, tested, and works. It's called my 90-day accelerator program. In 90 days, I will work with you one-on-one to help you land your first equity deal. Remember, the journey to real wealth starts with your first equity deal, and that can happen within the next 90 days if you follow this framework.